Hello everybody, welcome to your YouTube activity for week 6. We're already in week 6 of school. Alright, so it's kind of a sad day for guitar players. Yesterday a really famous guitar player passed away. His name was Eddie Van Halen. He died yesterday. I don't know if you can see it because of the glare, but there's a sad face there. Yeah, he died yesterday of throat cancer. I think it's from smoking too much. Anyway, really a sad day for guitar players. Eddie kind of had a signature pattern, a signature kind of logo that looked like this. This is actually an Eddie Van Halen tie. It actually says EVH on the back there. EVH for Eddie Van Halen. Anyway, we're going to be talking about him today, watching him play and discussing some things about him. We'll get to that in just a minute. As usual, I'm going to tell some dad jokes, but I think because it's kind of a sad day, I'll just tell you only one. Here's your one dad joke for the week. I kept putting money into the change machine yesterday, but nothing changed. Alright, actually something did change. Eddie died. So it was Tuesday, October 6th. So some of you are watching this later. Just wanted to tell you very briefly before we move on here that Eddie was named the number 8 guitar player of all time by Rolling Stone magazine. Rolling Stone is kind of the leading voice in popular and rock music, mostly rock music. Anyway, he's a really big deal. Jimi Hendrix was number 1. We've talked about him before, but Eddie Van Halen was number 8, and that's a big deal. There's another guitar magazine. In fact, there are a lot of guitar magazines out there that you can buy and read, but the one called Guitar World, they had a survey of all their readers, all the people that subscribe or buy their magazines. They had a survey of all those people a few years ago and asked who the greatest guitar player of all time was, and Guitar World said he was number 1. Eddie Van Halen was number 1. The readers said no, not Jimi Hendrix. Eddie Van Halen was number 1. So we're going to find out why in just a minute here. Here's a picture of Eddie Van Halen from back in his prime. That's probably around 1988, something like that. He was born in 1955, died just yesterday, Tuesday of this week, Tuesday, October 6th. There's that famous design on his guitar, the same as the design on my tie. That was kind of his logo. Here's another picture of Eddie from back in his prime in the 1980s. You might notice that there is a cigarette up there on the head of his guitar, just on the other side of the nut. Eddie smoked a lot. He was a smoker. He speculated that the cancer that he had tongue cancer for a while, and he had throat cancer just before he died. That's what he died of. He speculated that he got that cancer from metal guitar picks. Like he said, I used guitar picks that were made out of metal instead of plastic, and I used to put them inside my mouth when I wasn't using them, so I could just pull it out of my mouth to play when I wanted to. He thinks maybe he got cancer from the copper, and I can't remember the other kind of metal guitar pick he used, but I saw an article where they asked a cancer expert if that was likely the case, and he said no, that's probably not it. The fact that Eddie smoked so much and had a drug problem and drank so much, that's probably the reason for his cancer, especially the smoking. So yeah, don't smoke, you guys. Eddie actually lost a third of his tongue when he had tongue cancer around 2000. So, man, I would not want to lose part of my tongue, and I certainly would not want to have trouble with my throat either, and I don't want to be dead either. So don't smoke, you guys. Vaping probably isn't any better for you than smoking is, so please stop that if you do now. Here's the band Van Halen from back in their prime. This is probably around 1980. The guy on the far left was their original lead singer, David Lee Roth. He kind of got kicked out of the band later, but then rejoined them later, like in the 2000s. Next to him is Alex Van Halen. He was Eddie's brother. Alex is still alive. Alex is the drummer in the band. Eddie is the one pointing at the camera and holding the guitar. And over on the far right is Michael Anthony. He was the bass player. He played the low sounding bass guitar in the band for most of their uh, tenure as a band. They're still kind of a band now. I mean, they probably will quit now that Eddie's dead, but Alex and Eddie kept the band going at various points throughout the year. And actually now um, Eddie's son has been the bass player. Here are some things I want you to know. Their most famous song was probably that song Jump. You've probably heard that song before. The song I'm going to have you watch today is called Right Now. Most of Van Halen's songs were about love or partying or stuff that's inappropriate for us to talk about in school. I'm not super impressed by that, but Right Now is actually a really positive song about not waiting any longer to do the stuff that you think you should be doing with your life. Eddie is famous for a lot of things. He had that very famous guitar he called his Frankenstein guitar that had the design that looked like this on it. The Frankenstein guitar he kind of made himself. He took parts of guitars that he liked and kind of connected them to make a guitar that had all the features that he wanted. And if you've read the book Frankenstein, you would know that Dr. Frankenstein in that book connected parts of various bodies, like human bodies, to make a new person, Frankenstein's monster. So that's kind of why he called it the Frankenstein guitar. Eddie was into finger tapping. I'll try to show that to you in a minute here, and other unusual techniques. He was just a monster on the guitar. He could do so many cool little techniques and tricks that I hope you will pay attention to in this video. His most famous solo, his most famous improvised or freestyle solo was in the song Beat It by Michael Jackson. That's another song you probably have heard before. Michael Jackson was huge in the 1980s, the most famous singer of the 1980s, and Eddie was definitely the most famous guitar player of the 1980s. So they kind of teamed up on that Beat It song, and Eddie played a super complicated, super cool improvised guitar solo. He married a really famous actress back in the 1980s named Valerie Bertinelli. She was really pretty. She was in the show called One Day at a Time. They were kind of the it couple at the time. And their son, Wolfgang, is the one I was talking about a minute ago. He is the bass player in the current version of Van Halen. They divorced a few years ago, but they were married for a while. Some things we can learn from Eddie. Number one, he's really good at alternate picking, going down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, which is a really good way to be fast and smooth. Number two, as I mentioned before, we can learn not to do stuff that's bad for your health, like smoking. You might die from it. Eddie was only 65 years old. That's only 13 years older than me. I hope I make it longer than 65 years. And I have a pretty good chance because I don't smoke or anything like that. Number three, sometimes people say less is more when it comes to lots of things in life. Sometimes music, people will say, if you play less notes, it actually sounds better. But Eddie was an example of more is more. He played a zillion notes in his solos, and it just sounded amazing. For some people it was too much, but I really thought it was great. Here are your questions for this week. Number one, as always, I would like you to tell me why you like or dislike this performance. And I'm asking you to please be specific. Some of you wrote very short sentences for number one last week. Please give me more than a short sentence. Please write something like, I like this performance because the techniques he's using are really interesting and his sound is really energetic, period. That would be a great sentence. All right, number two for this week, I'm asking you what guitar songs or exercises have you been practicing at home? You know that you need to be playing at home. That's part of what I expect of you this semester. I'm just curious what you've been playing. Please tell me that in a complete sentence. And finally, number three is the same as always. Please tell me what's making you mad, sad, or glad today.
Hi there, let's talk a little bit about what Eddie does on the electric guitar. He's got a zillion tricks, he's really good, was really good. I'm just going to show you two things that he was really well known for. So one of them is the use of this thing, this bar right here. It's called a whammy bar. Um, and when you push down on it, it actually moves this part of your guitar. It's called the saddle or the tailpiece, and it actually lifts it up, and it makes all the strings looser, less tight. So that makes the pitch go down. It makes the sound of the notes go down. So of course, if I play my guitar here without turning on the amplifier, it's not going to sound like much because it's an electric guitar. So let me turn this on. So now the vibrations of these strings are being picked up by these little things called pickups and going into the amplifier, and I sound like that. Cool, huh? So I'm going to play that chord. That's an A5 power chord. I'm going to push this down. So Eddie does that a lot, especially in his most famous guitar solo, which is called Eruption. You should check that out sometime. So that's one of the things he does a lot. The other thing he's really well known for is something called tapping, Tapping. It involves just taking your right hand and just pushing down on the string like this, or this. On an electric guitar, you can get a sound without using your pick at all. You can just tap the strings and it'll sound like something. And depending on the fret that I push down on, I can get a higher sound or a lower sound. And when I let go, I can kind of pull my finger off like this. And you get an extra sound. You get that open sound of that string. Or you can put an extra finger down here and get this sound plus this sound. See how that works? I'm going to have the sound of this fret and the sound of this fret. So Eddie did a lot of that kind of thing, where he would maybe play a high string like string 3 and go. You have to tap kind of hard, depending on how your settings are on your amplifier. Anyway, tapping and whammy bar are big things that Eddie did a lot, and you should see them in this video. So the video I'm having you watch today is a song called Right Now, and Eddie plays some riffs, just plays some little parts that fit into the song at the beginning, and then later he does an improvised freestyle solo where he's just kind of making it up. And he kind of takes turns with the lead singer from the band. His name was Sammy Hagar at the time. They had a new lead singer in the 90s. And Sammy's a really good guitar player too, so they kind of take turns, and you can see how great Eddie really was. And some of the running around and kind of stuff that they did. Incidentally, he also had hip surgery in his life, partially because he did so much running and jumping around on stage that he hurt himself. So don't smoke, don't vape, don't do drugs, and don't hurt yourself by jumping around when you're maybe older than you should be when you do that sort of thing. All right, please enjoy Right Now. The lyrics are kind of about seizing the opportunity of today and getting things done that maybe you've been putting off. That's one way to think of it. Another way to think of it is the way I think they were thinking of it at the time, which is it's good to think about all the things that are going on in the world right now. Like some things that are bad, some things are good, but especially bad things that we sometimes forget about. Like right now, there are people who don't have enough food to eat, and right now, there are rich people trying to take advantage of you. That's the kind of thing I think they were talking about at the time. Yeah, so please enjoy Right Now by Van Halen.